Welcome to the TechHub.training Excel Dartgun Discrepancies Challenge solution. So first we need to add the three columns that they instructed us to add. So the first one is the order total in USD using the fixed rates found in the fixed rate sheet. So we're going to name a column. We'll call it fixed order total USD. I spelled that wrong. Okay, so we want to use the fixed rates that are in this sheet. So as you can see, there's the rates right here in this column F. So the exchange rate here is USD to local, meaning that $1 is equal to 0.9 euros and so on. So in order to go from the local currency to USD, we're going to actually have to divide by this number. And then we're also going to need to look up that number based on the currency in this column. So first, so we're going to get our order total in the foreign currency, and then we're going to want to divide by the foreign exchange rate from the other sheet. So we're going to do an XLOOKUP. We're going to look up based on this currency. We're going to find our currency column in this sheet, and then we want to pull this number. Close our parentheses, press enter, and there's our USD sales number for that order. We can go ahead and copy that down, and that's our first column. So the second column is the total sales based on the actual rate in this sheet. So we're going to call it actual order total USD. Okay, now we're going to look at those rates and see how they are. Okay, so we see that these rates have two unique identifiers in these two columns. As you can see, the date is needed and the currency so that we can look this up. So we're going to add a column here. We're going to call it concat. So what we're going to do is we're going to concatenate these two columns so that we can get a unique identifier for each line that's only in one column, so we can XLOOKUP on that. And as you can see, if we looked up on here, either one of these rates could be what we're searching for. And then, so we need the dates in order to look this up. So we concatenate those and we get unique identifiers. So we can copy that down. Now we're going to go here. So we need something to look it up with, though. So we already have our dates right here. So we need the currency code, which is not found on the sheet yet. So we can use this currency column to look up what the currency code is from this sheet. So we're going to add a column. We'll call it currency code. We will do an XLOOKUP on this currency. Same deal, we'll come here, click on the currency where we're looking up, and then we'll click on what column we want to pull from, and that gives us our currency code. Okay, now we're going to want to make another concatenated column with this ship date and the currency code. So we're going to add another column here. We'll call it concat again. Now we're going to concat these two. So you'll notice, before I do that, you'll notice that the ship date has a timestamp on it. So if we concatenate these two, this timestamp will probably end up in this concatenate. So let me just show you real quick. Yeah, you see that it came out in the numbers because this is in a date format. So this won't work. So what we're going to do is we're going to convert this date column to text using the text function. Okay, so we have our value, which is what we want to convert to text, and we're going to want it in the form. We're going to want to specify a format for that date. And if you noticed from the last column, you can go ahead and look. The dates were in full year. They said full year dash 2-digit month code dash 2-digit day number. So that will give us the specific format we want, and then it'll concatenate with this currency code, which is already a text. So press enter, and that looks pretty good. We can compare it here, and they appear to be the same. So we'll copy that down. Okay, so the reason we want this is so that we can use it to call for this number. So we're going to come here. Actually, first, this rate is in local to USD, meaning that we multiplied the local currency by this amount, or by this exchange rate, and then that will give us the USD. Okay, so on this one, we're going to do the opposite of what we did before. Here, we divided. This one, we're going to multiply the foreign amount by the rate we pull. So we'll do an XLOOKUP again. We'll use this column that we just created. That's the value that's the identifier associated with the value we want. We'll go here, get that column, and then call for this column. Press enter. Those look pretty close, so we're probably correct. Yeah. So we know we're pretty close. Then the last column will be the discrepancy between the two, and then it specifies, we'll just call it difference. It specifies that it is the actual minus the fixed. Okay, using the actual rate, order total, minus the fixed order total. Now the reason for this is so that we can know that the recorded sales using our fixed rate, these are what we recorded in our books. This is what it actually should have said. So by doing this, we're saying that our sales in our books are overstated. They're $31.36 too high. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, copy that down, and we're done with those 3 columns. And I'll just highlight these just so we know. I'll highlight all the ones that we added in. Okay, and then one last thing, we're going to want to add a column for our country full name of our country. We'll just call it country full. And we'll just do a quick XLOOKUP of that country code in our fixed rates. Okay, we're calling, or this is our identifier, and then we're calling for the full country name value. Okay, HU is Hungary, so we can go ahead and copy that down. We created that column, so I'll highlight that. And then we created this column, so I'll highlight that too. Okay, so next we have our pivot tables to make, right? So we're going to add, there's one sheet. We'll make this our first pivot table. We'll add 2 more. Oops. Name this pivot 2. And this one pivot 3. Okay, and then we'll insert, get a pivot table, go here. You can click here and then press Control A, and that will get all of the data within that tab. Actually, did you notice something when I did that? You see all these NAs. We have to fix that. So we're going to come up here to our filter. We're going to figure out why there's NAs there. Okay, so now we have our drop down. So we know that there are NAs in this data. So we're going to deselect all, come down to the bottom, and we see this NA. Now our pivot table is not going to display values if we don't get rid of these. So now we have to investigate why these are occurring. The reason NAs occur is because the XLOOKUP is looking up a value that can't be found. So it's looking up this and can't find it in our actual rates sheet. And the reason for that is that all of these sales, you can go here, you see that they're in dollars, in US dollars. Now in this sheet, we didn't, our friend, he didn't pull the exchange rates for USD, obviously, because they'd all be one. So we know that this doesn't have any exchange rate discrepancy, so it can be the same as the order total. And that makes sense because there's zero difference if there's no exchange rate. I hope that makes sense. Okay, and then we'll come here, we'll clear our filter. Okay, now it should work for our pivot. Okay, so we are going to first refresh this. Okay, so the first pivot table will be a breakdown of the rate discrepancies in dollars by currency. Okay, a breakdown of the rate discrepancies. So that's talking about the differences that we noticed. So we'll put that in our values. And then we want it by currency. So we're going to come up to our, not our currency code, we want our currency full name. Then we can see all of our discrepancies. Okay. So the CFO wants to know which currencies have overstated and which have understated sales. You can see here those numbers. So Euro sales should be 61,000 less than they're recorded at right now. Right? Okay. Let's see what they're asking. We want to rank the currencies from greatest to least. So understated to overstated. Sort, largest to smallest. Okay. So now we have that breakdown. Then we're asked to create a pivot chart. So we'll go here to Insert, Pivot Chart, a Pivot Pie Chart. This one looks good. Okay. A monochromatic pivot pie chart. So we'll click on there. We'll go to Design. I don't know why that broke apart. We'll change the color to be, let's do this one, monochromatic. Okay. Now we can see that it shows our currency type, and then the value of the discrepancy, and then the percent of the whole that is that value. Okay, now we're going to want to name this something useful. So we'll call it exchange rate discrepancy breakdown by currency. Oops. Okay, that looks good. We're going to want to make this a little bigger. You'll notice that our our legend right here, it doesn't include all of the different currencies. So if we make it a little bigger, then it'll show all of them. You can see euro to Hong Kong dollar, euro to Hong Kong dollar. Okay, and we're going to zoom out a little bit just so we can see it better along with the numbers. Okay, now the we need to add data labels that display the currency name and the percent of the whole that each currency represents. Okay, so we're going to come here, click on there, add data labels. Okay, right now it's showing the values for each currency. We'll come out here, and you see here how there's these lines leading to the slices of the pie. We probably want those so that it's easily readable, so that all the text in these smaller slices isn't mashed together. So best fit is probably the best option there. We're going to want to come to more options though. Now we want the currency name, so that would be our category name. You see it show up there. We don't want the value, but we do want the percent of the whole that they are. Okay, there we go. It's a little messy, so what we'll do is let's put that on the left, make this a little bigger, and then we can move all of these around so that they're in better places. You can see they kind of auto set themselves. That looks pretty good. Okay, and then in order to make these look a little better, the problem says that to make each data label easily readable, or else the CFO will demote you to pea shooter. So for some of these, in order to, like say we want to change this one specifically, we click on it again and it deselects all of those. We're going to make this text white, and we'll make it bigger just so it's easily readable. We'll do the same here. Okay, and same here. Okay, that looks pretty good. We'll just make these all bold. Okay, so you can easily tell which data labels are associated with whichever slice. I can move this one down a little bit. Looks pretty good. Okay. And that is the end of number 1. So we'll go to number 2, insert a pivot table, come here to our data, Control A, select all of our data. Now we're not going to include a pivot chart on this one. We want the total USD sales based on the fixed rates. Okay, so we'll come down here to the fixed rate. Okay, that's our total sales amount. And then we want that by currency again. So we'll come here to currency, put that in our rows. Okay. And then we want the total discrepancy associated with the currency. So we're going to take our difference again, add that as another column. We'll just change these real quick so that they're more easily readable. Okay. And same here. We'll come back here and do this. You just click number format and then click currency or accounting, and it will show them as nice rounded dollar amounts. Okay, and then we want one last column as the discrepancy as a percentage of the sales column. So we want this as a percentage of that. Okay, now what we'll need is to do a calculated field. So that's under Pivot Table Analyze. Come here to Fields, Items, and Sets, Calculated Field. Then you'll want to name it something significant because that's going to show up as your header. So percent of sales. Come down here to the formula. Now what we're basically doing here is including these columns as variables basically. Okay, so in order to get the percent of sales that the difference is, we want the difference divided by this sales amount. So we're going to come down here to difference, and we'll double click it so that it comes into this field. We'll do a divided by sign. and then we'll come to this, we're doing the fixed order total, so we'll double click that. We see that both of those fields are in there and it looks pretty good. Click OK, and it automatically enters into this, or it adds a new column. Now this isn't in percentage format, so we'll come here, go to number format again, go to percentage, 2 decimal places is fine, click OK, and there we have a breakdown of the percentage of sales that the difference is. Now we want to sort the table by the percentage of sales column ascending, meaning smallest to largest. Okay, we see that breakdown. And the question is, which fixed rates are missing the mark the most? Now this isn't necessarily a question of positive and negatives. This is more of a question of how far they are from 0%. So you can see like new Taiwan dollar, that's very, the fixed rate that we're using is not very far from the actual rate. But we can see here like Philippine peso and Hong Kong dollar, you can see that these three are very far from what their actual rates are. So those are probably the rates that the CFO will want to change the most. Okay, and that's it for that one. So now we'll come to the third pivot table. So we're going to insert a pivot table, come here, Control A. Okay, we have all of that. Now we want to rank each country by its sales in USD because that's how they distribute their prizes per country. So we're doing this by country, so we'll do country full in our rows, and then so we want the sales that they're recording because it's based on their recorded sales, which is based on their fixed rate, so we'll put that in our values. You can see all the total sales per country. And then we only want to include the top 10, so we'll come here, we'll filter, and you come down to this top 10 option, and this is going to show us the top 10 items, meaning the countries, by the sum of the fixed order total, and that's exactly what we want. So we'll click OK. So we have our top 10 selling countries. We'll want to rank those. So we'll come here, sort, largest to smallest. We can see that Norway was the highest selling country. And then we want to include the column displaying USD sales based on the actual rate also. So we'll drag that down into our values. Okay, and then we'll clean these up. Put currency format. Okay, so the question they ask is, are there any countries whose sales rankings should change based on the sales numbers using actual rates? So right now we're ranking according to these rates. Will any countries swap spots if they're using this rate, or the actual rates? And then it says to create a pivot clustered bar chart to investigate. So we'll come here to insert, to another pivot chart. We'll do a clustered column, looks good, okay. Okay, we'll move this down a little bit. Okay, make it bigger. Now, which countries soldiers need to trade prizes? So what this is showing us is basically the breakdown in sales. So the blue sales are the recorded sales, and that's how their rankings are based. So we can see that they're always lower than the one to the left. These ones are pretty close, but we come up here and we see that they're close, but they're lower. And then the actual using the actual rates, these are the actual, what should have been recorded if they're using the actual rates. So we see that it goes down, looks good, looks good. Right here, we see that the left sales amount is lower than the right sales amount. So we can come up here and we see that yes, that is true. So Canada, based on the actual rate, should have been ranked higher than Germany. But because of the fixed rates, they weren't. So Canada and Germany need to swap their prizes and medals or whatever they receive. Great, and that's the last question. I hope this was helpful.